Yeah, Porto, first of all. Yeah.
Well, it is a great pleasure to see you here, and thank you very much. So, it is. I agree with everything you have said, but I have a question. The topic in which you can be the best person to answer, because you are involved in government with social affairs, because the topic of this seminar is about progress towards economic and monetary union, and the future of the economic social model, the European social model. Well, of course, I agree with you. We have made wrong things in many cases, because you compare with the United States, they are growing, you are not growing. So we must have anti-cyclical policies, as you have said. But the question arises about the new emerging countries. If you look at the statistics, even now, 2014, China is growing 7.3%, India is growing 7%, and we have this, we are afraid, of course, of these countries. So the question is it possible to keep our European social model? I have my view, because you have happily, I do not agree always with Madam Merkel, but of course when Holland and Germany have a surplus bigger than China, you can have some hope, but I want your answer about what I think about that. Thank you very much, and many congratulations for your speech.
Now going on with the Portuguese wave, Vasco.
Thank you. É tempo para os portugueses dizerem alguma coisa. It's time for the Portuguese now to speak a little bit. I was one of the first 24 members of this the Portuguese members of this Parliament back in 1986, and listening to our member Elisa saying back to basics, I remember that at that time we were on the basics, and the situation is now reversed. At that time, politics was the most important thing, the most important goal of the then EEC. Now, the most important goal seems to be the interests of the financiers of finances and economics. I think, Elisa, that you have quoted very sharply the future of this union. We have to go back to basics. We have to put politics before, and finances and some economic interests related to finance second. And my question to you is if you agree with this idea, which, by the way, has been quoted by my former presidents of the regional government of the Azores, first Motabral, lately he said exactly this, and then Carlos César, both good friends of mine, both politicians that put politics and people first, and then money and finances second. I would like to hear your opinion. Thank you.
Please be brief, because she's in a hurry. Savos and then Malerva.
Thank you very much, President. I would fully agree with what has just been said, that probably the key issue of this period of times to come is a drastic rebalancing between what we consider markets and democracy. At the same time, I would agree also with Ms. Fereirra, what she said, that the European Banking Union is probably by far the most important steps the Union has taken since the Maastricht Treaty, and this is, I think, for the simple reason that when you look in the Eurozone, and I would say a non-optimal currency zone that needs absolutely a shock absorber between the more advanced and less advanced economic countries, and that is what the banking union is offering. But, and here's the question, the European Banking Union, it is important, but is an unfinished symphony. And what I would like to ask Ms. Fereirra is, what should be the necessary and important steps to be taken within the current bounds of the treaty in order to complete the European Union, the banking union, I would say, before even advancing to capital union, because we have left aside things like the third pillar, the deposit guarantee systems and other issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Malerva and then Carlson.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Madam Fereirra, for a very interesting conversation. I wanted to ask you a question about the tax competition, which you touched upon. At the OECD, where I worked until recently, we had an interesting debate once with representatives of different countries, and this sounds a little bit of a joke. There was a representative of Luxembourg. He said, well, you see, if there wasn't a country like us who grants lower taxes to enterprises and so to speak moderate the hunger of the tax collectors, Europe would go even worse. So apparently there are different schools of thought about taxing, in particular taxing multinationals, taxing enterprises. There is a document called Business Evasion and Profit Shifting by the OECD, which is probably of some use also for your work. I wonder what the European Parliament will do in the next, if you can anticipate in this aspect. And then I'm very curious, and I suppose my colleagues are also very curious about what will be the rules of application of this Juncker plan. I have in mind one example, which is the European Space Agency, and they apply, for example, the concept of national return. ESA is an intergovernment organization, not a European, say, true organization. But in this respect, I believe the countries are happy with the results. So I wonder if there is something that can be thought new to help better the people who are less capable to provide the excellent programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Haran Kars, and then Mr. Mogni.
Ms. Fereirra, you elaborated elegantly the problem of having one currency, the monetary union, and still big differences between financial policy and the taxing policy in Europe. But you didn't tell us how to solve the problem. I got the understanding that you mean that we need more of common policy in these areas as well. My question is, how do you think you will be able to get that? I hope you will. But the problem is, of course, that the two main states in the European Union still, France and Germany, they are going in different directions with regard to so many matters on the financial policies. How are we to solve for Europe? How are we to find for Europe a road ahead of more collaboration on these matters, as long as not even the leading nations of the European Union cannot find a common platform in these ideas? Please help me, give me ideas and hope.
Thank you. Mogni?
My name is Mogni. I'm a program director of a think tank here in Brussels, a Global Governance Institute. Thank you for your presentation. I would like to give you some ideas, some proposals.
The question, it would be better, because we are short of time.
Okay. The first question is how to avoid the banking fragmentation, the fragmentation of European banking system. The second question is, do you think that a more dynamic exchange rate policy of the euro may facilitate the European competitiveness relative to the emerging economies and the dollar area? And the third issue is, do you think that the revision of Europe 2020 strategy may be a good occasion to reconsider options for European competitiveness, innovation and technological development? Thank you.
Thank you. Sharp questions. Then Mrs. Starkeviciuti, and then Madame Benarab Atou. Please.
Hello, Luisa. Elisa, I just want to say that there is a huge diffusion of the new technology in economy, and unfortunately there is a big gap in legislation allowing to use crowdfunding for social projects and everything which is could contribute to Juncker's investment plan. So my point is, do you have some plans to speed up legislation with related to new technology use in economy, financial markets, because it's a big gap?
Thank you, Madame. S'il vous plaît.
Merci, bonjour Elisa.
Thank you. Hello Lisa, nice to see you again. I have a question linked to the title of the conference, and especially the future of the European social model. Now, the current policies and the current budgetary policies place the social and social protection as an expenditure, as a cost. Now, if you see the current unravelling of social policy, such as in countries like Greece, which is happening most tragically, and also in Spain, wouldn't it in fact be time now to actually try and look at the convergence of social protection systems, at least inside the Eurozone, in such a way as not to lose the social protection model that we have in Europe? It might seem paradoxical, but at the very moment that we are beginning to abandon these models, where we are dropping our levels of social protection, that there's some other countries like the USA are now starting to introduce medical insurance. China is starting to set up a proper system, a limited system indeed, but a proper system for welfare support. So at the very same moment this is happening, we're starting to unravel it. And that is also have a negative impact on how the citizens use us.
First favor.
Well, yes. Well, these are not questions. This is, I mean, this is the issue. I'll try to give you very quickly my opinion on some of the issues, not question by question, but trying to address subjects that were addressed. The last question that relates to the first, so social model, I think we have got to reassess very carefully our social model. It is at the crux, at the centre, at the core of our agenda, of our political agenda. I think we have got to start thinking what are the minimum rights of a European citizen, but we'll have to make sure that what we do is compatible with this globalised world. So this is the kind of trade-off that has got to be done. In the short term, I'm very supportive of all the initiatives to support young people, to active policies of working, so that people that are unemployed, they are not put aside, and that they are prepared for when the economy restarts again. But having said this, if we don't solve the economic problem, the real economy problem, if there is no growth, all this massive unemployment will end up as a cost for the budgets that is unbearable. So the whole issue of the social dimension has got to be viable. I don't want to use the word sustainable because it has been overused. It has got to be made viable through a new approach of the real economy and of the conditions for Europe to have an industry, to have a small and medium enterprises, big enterprises, and to have these dynamics. So in a nutshell, this is what I would like to say about the social element. It's important that we reassess it. It's important that we make it union-like, common grounds, but this has got to come together with reassessment of the conditions for growth. The question that was put, obrigada por a ter colocado, on going back to basics or not, this is a crucial element. When I was starting to work on European affairs, I I made the calculations before the accession of Portugal to the European Union, at that time CAA, and I made the calculations and I achieved the conclusion this is not going to work, for a simple reason, because on industrial policies the market access was already coming from the free trade agreement, and we had the costs of the agricultural policy, so it was not working. And I went to see Mário Soares, who was negotiating the agreement, and he used to come to young people at that time and ask for opinions, and I was telling him this is not going to work. And the answer was, this is politics. This is not economics, my dear. And I said, okay. So we knew since the beginning that this was not an optimal currency area. But the belief for the European people was that this was a political problem, and whatever was missing would be filled by the political will of keeping the area together. And this is partly an answer to your question. That the political will would always be there. And all of a sudden, we realize that this is just economics, and the politics has vanished, and if you cannot hold your economy, then please leave. So the whole framework changed, and this is what we have to decide and to tell to the citizens. And this is not to have a non-performing economy. Are we willing to fill the missing gaps or not? And do we have the political will to address this issue openly? That is the question. And now, there were a lot of questions on banking union, specific issues, banking union. On banking union, I think we are now, what we have done, single supervision. The single resolution will be voted in next week, the board, and also the contributions of banks to the Common Resolution Fund. And the bail-in system will become operational after the 1st of January this year, and inside banking union after the 1st of January 2016. What is missing? For me, a credit line to support this common resolution fund, to make it strong, to be repaid by banks again, so that if we have to resolve a bank, the board is not blocked by lack of instruments, and definitely the system to protect deposits. The third leg, this is a fight that we have got to start now. And I'm starting it, because the tendency is, okay, we have done supervision and resolution, let's forget about the third leg. It is not possible. Tax competition. This is an issue on which we have got to clarify our ideas. Of course, we are living in a globalized world, and in terms of international institutions, we still live in the aftermath of the Second World War. So we still have institutions that are not capable of dealing with the situation we are living in. Fortunately, also OECD did a lot. I know the work that has been done. I thank you for it. Inside Europe, the reason why we cannot move is that, of course, different member states have organised themselves along competition and keeping kind of black holes where the capital flows in. Of course, this has got to be dealt internationally, but Europe is still the first financial market in the world, so there is a role for Europe to move forward internationally and to play inside the G20 a strong position, but internally we have got to have a solution for citizens whose pensions are being cut, whereas at the same time they see that big multinationals pay zero tax or 0.5 as a tax because they play with the differences. So I'm not asking for harmonisation, but I'm definitely asking for a minimum of coordination in an internal market with a single currency, because it doesn't make sense. On the fragmentation, there were lots of questions on the exchange rate of the euro. The exchange rate of the euro is just one element. I think we have not, as the most relevant trading bloc of the world, we have over-concentrated on looking inwards and hoping that the whole growth would come from the internal market and from more and more harmonisation. And my conviction is that more and more harmonisation helps, but it's not the final solution, because outside we have the engines for growth, and Europe cannot have an absence of clear offensive and defensive interests in a globalised world. This cannot be the outcome from a fight between producers and importers, in which importers and financial sector always wins. It cannot work like this, or we'll have a lot of problems. Then there is the issue of funding. And Margareta Starkevičiūtė has put it very clearly. I think we have got to reassess the issue of credit and how to evaluate risk, and this links also to the 2020 agenda. We don't have the mechanisms to deliver what we have dreamed of, and not even in Stability and Growth Pact we protect the investments that are absolutely crucial for the growth. So I think I would love, as you can imagine, to stay here for this discussion, because we need to have this kind of exchange. But unfortunately, I have to go again for LuxLeaks discussion in my political group. So I finish by apologising not to go into more detail in these broad ideas, but at least for me it has been very interesting, and please, I will try to get the information from you on what you have discussed and what your proposals are. Thank you very much indeed for this opportunity.
Muito obrigado. Muito obrigado.
Gracias.
Elisa.